What if I told you one of the darkest chapters in human history was hidden behind the word research? Today, we trust hospitals, we trust laboratories, we trust science to heal. But in the shadows of World War II, one facility turned medicine into something unrecognizable, something horrifying. It was called Unit 731. Officially, it was established to protect Japanese soldiers from disease, a public health initiative, a research division. But behind its guarded gates in occupied China, something far more sinister was happening. An estimated 14,000 people never walked out alive, most of them Chinese civilians, Soviet soldiers, and even some Allied prisoners of war, all reduced to numbered test subjects. They were exposed to deadly pathogens. This was not science in service of humanity. This was cruelty wearing a lab coat. So how did a medical research unit become a factory of suffering? Who ordered it? And who protected it? Stick around, because this is what really happened at Unit 731. Before it became a symbol of horror, it had a different name. In 1936, deep in occupied Manchuria, a secret division of the Japanese Kwantung Army was established, the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. Harmless, clinical, necessary. But that was the mask. Behind it stood Lieutenant General Shiro Ishii, a military doctor who believed biological warfare was the future. After studying abroad, he returned convinced science could become a weapon more devastating than bullets. He had support. Powerful officials funded him. Facilities expanded. Security tightened. The project evolved into what the world would later know as Unit 731. Officially, it protected soldiers from disease. Unofficially, it was built to weaponize it. Prisoners were used to study deadly pathogens on living bodies. Japan had signed the 1925 Geneva Protocol banning such weapons. Inside these walls, treaties meant nothing. At first, prisoners were told they were being relocated. Once inside Unit 731, they stopped being people. They became Maruta, logs, a nickname tied to the facility's cover story of being a lumber mill, as if human lives were nothing more than raw material to be processed and discarded. Most were Chinese civilians and captured soldiers. Some were political prisoners. All were trapped in a system designed not to heal, but to test. Deadly pathogens. Plague, cholera, anthrax were introduced into their bodies. Infections were observed in real time. Researchers took notes. Sometimes, agents were released in field tests on nearby villages. Injections were disguised as vaccinations. What entered the bloodstream was far more sinister. Vivisections became routine. Men and women were infected, then dissected, often without anesthesia, so researchers could watch organs function until the moment of death. If someone survived longer than expected, cyanide or chloroform ensured silence. Bodies were burned, records altered, findings quietly published as animal research. But disease was only part of the nightmare. Another researcher turned his attention to cold. Army engineer Hisato Yoshimura became obsessed with frostbite, not to treat it, but to measure it, to weaponize it. Prisoners were forced into sub-zero conditions, limbs plunged into ice water or exposed to minus 40 to 50 degrees Celsius air until flesh hardened. Frozen skin made a hollow sound when struck, like tapping wood. That sound told him freezing was complete. Then the examination began. Limbs were thawed with hot water to observe tissue damage and gangrene. Many victims lost arms or legs in days. Some were left outdoors with no protection. Yoshimura tested how diet, salt intake, activity, and fasting affected survival time. Children were not spared. The data mattered more than age, more than innocence. After the war, Yoshimura continued his academic career, publishing research, contributing to science. Among some peers, he was called the scientific devil. Not because he hid what he did, but because he carried it out without hesitation. But disease and cold were still not the limit. Unit 731 also tested weapons. Prisoners were tied to stakes at distances from 10 to 50 meters while fragmentation bombs detonated. Scientists meticulously recorded shrapnel penetration depth, wound patterns, and survival times. Pathogen-releasing bombs were tested the same way, observed for spread and efficiency. Bladed weapons and close combat tools were also trialed on living subjects to simulate battlefield injuries. In some cases, survivors of blasts were taken for surgery, not to save them, but to examine internal damage while it was fresh. If they did not survive, autopsies followed. Starvation became another stopwatch. Prisoners were sealed away, denied food and water. Researchers tracked how long the body endured total deprivation before shutting down. To study extreme speeds, captives were strapped into centrifuges spinning at 10 to 15 times normal gravity. Vision blurred, organs struggled, many passed out, some never woke up. Women faced horrors of their own. Some were deliberately infected and forced into pregnancies to study disease transmission from mother to child. Infants born inside the compound did not survive. Their brief lives were reduced to data points in a ledger. This was not chaos. Unit 731 was a planned military program, which makes what happened next even harder to accept. When Japan surrendered in 1945, Unit 731 launched a final cover-up. Remaining prisoners were killed, poisoned, gassed, or shot. Bodies burned and buried on site. Documents destroyed, facility rigged with explosives. Many personnel were given potassium cyanide to avoid capture. But history has a way of uncovering what people try to bury. After the war, a shocking compromise emerged. In exchange for their research data, several Unit 731 leaders were granted immunity by Allied authorities who believed the information might be useful. The world moved forward. The scars remained. Today, Unit 731 stands as one of history's darkest reminders of what happens when science is stripped of ethics and humanity is reduced to data. It is a story of war, of power, and of the terrifying places ambition can go when morality is forgotten. So ask yourself, how far can science go before it stops being progress? If this story shocked you, like the video and share it so history like this is never forgotten. Subscribe and hit the bell for more dark history. Comment below, which Unit 731 experiment disturbed you the most? Frostbite? Vivisection? Forced pregnancies? Or something else? And remember, some secrets are buried, but not forever.